Здравейте, колеги! Казвам се Ваня Иванова, с колегата Гергана Петкова ще ви представим нашия труд. Първо искам да се извиня, че ще бъде на английски език, защото го подготвихме на английски, най-вече заради украинските участници, за да могат и те да участват, въпреки че не присъстват. Подготвили сме го така че ще го представя на английски. So apologies once again. So today... Тяхната беше изписана поне на английски, решихме, че така или иначе сме написали на английски.
Да, защото един хърватин говори на един сърбин на английски език. И това ми се стори твърде странно, често казано, след като този език беше един преди известно време. Смятам, че украинците българските трябва да разберат.
Може и да сме сгрешили, но anyway, we'll proceed as planned. So the title is working with our students with different types of texts and mainly scientific and business communication texts. So in our presentation, we would like to very briefly outline the context of our research, that is the Faculty of Mathematics and Informatics at the University of Plovdiv. Гергана Петкова and I used to work there together before she moved on to the Medical University of Plовдив. Then very briefly again, we will say a few words about practice tests and how we use them in our work. Then we'll outline again teaching academic and professional texts. And we'll give an example topic that we use in our work, which is a job application and its three main components. And we'll finish with some conclusions. So, as I promised very briefly about the context, at the Faculty of Mathematics and Informatics, until 2 years ago, we used to study in trimesters. That is 3 trimesters of 10 academic weeks each. But 2 years ago, we had to comply with the organization of other faculties as well. So we used the time to make some changes, and now we teach our students 2 semesters of English. The first one is General English, and the second one ESP, that is English for specific purposes, and mainly English for technology. In our work, besides the placement tests and the final tests, we use other tests as well, which are placement tests. What are these placement tests? I would like to say a few words about these. And we most often use Google Classroom because of the statistics that they offer, which help us to improve our work, the quality of our work. So very shortly about practice tests. Well, it all started a few years ago, about 10 years ago, with the findings of some well-known scholars, Rödger III, for example, Karl Picke and others, who found out in their work that amongst the methods of helping students remember information for a long time, so-called long-term retention of information, can be achieved via practice tests. What are these practice tests? When students are introduced to some new information, they can try to remember it for a long time by using different techniques. For example, reading it once again, underlying the most important information, highlighting texts, etc. But these authors that I mentioned found out that practice tests are really useful. That is, after students have been introduced to some new material, they take a test. And in this test, they try to remember the correct answer to the questions, be they closed or open questions. And even if they can't remember what the correct answer is, especially after they're given timely feedback afterwards, they manage to remember the information for a longer period of time. Our practice tests are based on Bloom's taxonomy. The basics of which is that we start from simpler questions and we proceed to more complex ones. And in our work, we base our practice tests on different materials, mainly the study materials that we introduce in the classroom. We also make tests based on literature, authentic English literature, or also on idiomatic expressions. When we when we finish with texts, we usually assign them as homework, and at the end of the test, we usually ask for feedback, and the feedback is given into forms. The first one is open questions, and the second one, we use a Likert scale for students to grade certain elements of tests, starting from 1 to 6. That is how they like different elements of the test. And when we create practice tests, we use 5 criteria, which are given here. And I would like to very, very briefly show you an example of such a test, because it's always best to see what such a test is like. So this is a test based on authentic literature, a short story by Saki, which is titled The Lumber Room. And when students have to take a test, first of all, they are assigned the text to read, and I have opened it here, but I don't know. Anyway, I can open it again, and so when students open the text, they have access to this story, and at the end of each page, I have provided footnotes for them, some specific words, maybe some references made in the text for their convenience to understand better the text, and then they answer some questions based exactly on this text, which are lexical and grammatical. First of all, they answer some questions based on the story itself. Then they have questions to do with matching. They have to match words with their definitions, synonyms, or antonyms, different test questions, and they're given context as well. After the matching tasks, they have other test questions to find a mistake without correcting it, just see where it is. They have sentences taken from the text which have been paraphrased several times for them to decide which one best explains the meaning of the sentence, grammatical questions, etc. And finally, even some pictures here to find the correct words of these words, because they're all included in the text. And then here is the feedback. We can take a very quick look at some answers. You can see the statistics we get, how many students got the questions wrong, which helps us. And here they have answered the questions. Here's the feedback, grading from 1 to 6, whether they like the story itself, the test as a whole, the number of questions, the variety of questions, and some other elements. Well, basically, that is what I wanted to show you. And we proceed with our presentation. Next, we move on to the reasons for using reading texts in the classroom. Well, they are obvious. Nowadays, we are all aware of the tendency of students not to engage in extensive reading. So we are trying to help them find pleasure in reading. So obviously, the reasons for doing that is not just to practice their language abilities, but others as well. As you can see that we've enumerated some, developing their skills, cultural understanding, etc. So besides general English texts, as we mentioned in the placement, in the practice test, we also use academic and professional texts. And the benefits of using these are to enhance students' professionalism, communication skills, teamwork, presentation skills, and so on. So mostly we use scientific texts and business communication materials. From the scientific texts, mostly we use technical documentation and manuals, as well as research papers and journals. Why is that? Sometimes students work together with teachers and they publish articles together. So students basically need to be aware of the structure and the specific vocabulary of research work. From business communication materials, well, all of these are covered in our classes, especially presentations, writing emails, business proposals, minutes of meetings, etc. So why do we pay such attention to academic and professional texts? First of all, because of the specific styles, vocabulary, and grammatical structures which differentiate these types of text from all others. And in order to help our students work with such texts, we need to build on their interest and engagement. So in our work, we try to come up with different ideas that would help them become more engaged in what they do. And we also focus on the development of skills because that they would help students communicate in real world situations more effectively. So what steps do we take when we introduce an academic text in the classroom? We have outlined several here. First of all, we provide background information on the topic. Ever since the pandemic, we've been using Google Classroom in our work. Usually students have access to some so-called shared or common files to which they all have editor rights. So they can work in the same document at the same time and see what the others are doing. So first of all, we share some materials in the classroom for students to study. And we also investigate their preliminary knowledge. That is, we ask questions whether students are familiar with the topic, whether they have previous experience with that. And then we introduce key vocabulary and concepts. If there's a need, we explain things, we have discussions. And especially with our students that major in information technology, software technology and design, business information technology, etc., we tend to use a lot of multimedia and video materials in the classroom. Thank you. And we also supply relevant examples corresponding to their proficiency levels because students need to feel that the materials relate to their language level and to their interests. And also we do different practice materials, which may include vocabulary exercises, writing summaries, and so on. So an example that we would like to share is from a topic that we've covered in the classroom, which is a job application. Following the steps that we outlined a moment ago, we start with discussing the significance of effective job applications and different factors that correspond to effectiveness when applying for a job, not only the way they answer questions at the job interviews, but also different other factors such as the way they dress, the way they behave, body language, etc. Then we prompt our students to the key components of job applications, which we have explained here: resume or CV, a cover letter, and an interview. Then we talk about resumes, the purpose they're written, the main sections, the formatting, etc. And as an illustration, we show our students an online tutorial because, as they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words, a video even more so. A video is used in order to show the basics and also to help students relate to the material. So in this online tutorial, a software is utilized and some questions are answered, and students can see how they can fill in a resume online. And afterwards, they do exactly that. They fill in, they use this online platform in order to create a new Europass CV. So when they start working, they introduce different sections of the resume. They're given some tips what sections they could add, what possible information can be used in the different sections. When they fill in their own information, we advise them not to include sensitive information because, well, it's not done to actually apply for a job, but to practice. So when students finish with creating their CVs, they make a copy and they upload their copies in the classroom so that the others can have access to this and can give feedback and comment on this. Some examples from CVs that were created by our students are given here. The second subtopic is writing a cover letter. Again, we follow these steps, but to make students more engaged, we offer them particular job positions for which they need to create cover letters. And when they do so, we also explain that the same cover letter should not be used for all types of job positions, but they should be tailored for the specific requirements. We also compare different types of materials which are similar, cover letter, motivation letter, for example. Again, we finish with peer reviews and comments. Some examples have been included on this slide. The third subtopic from our example is interviews. They're probably the most exciting for our students. So first of all, as I mentioned a while ago, we discussed the significance of interviews, the importance of researching the company before they apply. And also we discussed some common interview questions because our students have, most of them have already sat for interviews. They've got some experience, be it the interviews in Bulgarian or in English, and we discuss some strategies for effective responses, as well as other factors, as we mentioned. And then we move on to their practical job, which is to sit for a mock interview. In these mock interviews, we again start with a practical example. We gave our students the example of a position of supervising children in an English learning language camp. So we wanted a position that didn't require previous experience. And in these outlines of the interview, in these guidelines, we included different sections and also time limits for each section. And for each section, there were sample questions. So students could read these questions, think how they relate to their personal interests and experience. And afterwards, we carried out the mock interviews. Students worked in pairs or in groups of threes, depending on the number of students. And sometimes they prefer to ask the questions that were given as examples, but answer them according to their preferences, or they asked their own. And after each mock interview, students commented on the performance of the others, and students shared that was really useful for them. What conclusions can we draw? With this work, with this research of ours, we wanted just to highlight, first of all, the importance of students understanding different types of documents. And we wanted to share how we proceed, how we approach tasks like that, introducing and working with scientific texts with our students, in the hope that other teachers will also share their experience, and that would lead to a fruitful discussion. Thank you very much for your attention.